April 9th, 1968. 2:13 a.m. Nicky climbed 6 flights in Harlem, carrying an empty briefcase like it was full of bricks, because tonight the weight wasn't cash. It was consequence. If he walked back down without an answer, he wouldn't just lose money. He'd lose his name, and Harlem was the kind of place that killed you twice. First in whispers, then in daylight. The hallway stank of wet wool and boiled cabbage. A radio bleating soft gospel through a neighbor's door. He knocked once, then again. The lock clicked with no hurry, like the door had been expecting him since midnight. Bumpy Johnson's apartment was warm in a way the building wasn't. A lamp threw low light over a plate of stale pound cake, a folded newspaper, and the unmistakable outline of a .38 resting under it like punctuation. Bumpy sat angled toward the window, not the door, cardigan on, face calm, eyes heavy with years that had outlived too many men. "Close it," he said. "I don't like the hallway listening." Nicky shut the door and stayed standing. He set the empty briefcase down anyway, careful, ritual-like, as if he'd brought proof instead of air. "I'm not here for protection," Nicky said. "I'm here for direction." Bumpy finally turned, studying him like a document that might be forged. "Direction at 2 in the morning," Bumpy murmured. "That's a man who felt his floor crack." Nicky didn't deny it. "A shipment didn't land where it was supposed to," he said. "Somebody says it's on me." Bumpy's mouth barely moved. "Somebody." "Frank," Nicky said, and the room tightened. Nicky forced his hands to relax. "I can cover it," he said. "I can pay. I can make it quiet." Bumpy lifted a finger, slow, like stopping a child from touching flame. "Quiet ain't right," he said. "Quiet is what happens before the next noise." Nicky's jaw flexed, then released. "I didn't take it." Bumpy's eyes stayed on his. "I believe you," he said. "But belief don't move fear. Frank moves fear." Nicky swallowed the urge to plead, because pleading was the first step to kneeling. "Then tell me what to do." Bumpy leaned forward a fraction. "I'm giving you a clock," he said. "Not Frank's clock. Mine." Nicky felt cold crawl up his spine. "Why?" Bumpy nodded toward the window, like Harlem itself was the witness. "Because if you and Frank start burning this neighborhood over pride, the people downtown smell smoke and call it order. Harlem runs on rules, and I'm a last man still interested in rules." He tapped the table once. 24 hours. Nicky nodded once tight. "I can close it." Bumpy's voice dropped. "Hear me. In 24 hours, either your problem is closed, or I won't cover you from what comes next. And even if I could, I won't want to." Nicky held his ground. "What does closed mean?" Bumpy's eyes sharpened. "It means Frank stops looking at you like a door he can kick in. It means the neighborhood stops whispering your name like it's a joke. It means whoever lit this match runs out of fingers." Nicky stared at the empty briefcase like it had suddenly gained gravity. "So I pay." Bumpy shook his head once. "You pay if you have to," he said. "But if you pay like a scared man, you teach them you're a scared man. Money first is fear first." Nicky felt the lesson sink into bone. Bumpy nodded toward the door. "Go," he said. "And don't confuse saving your life with saving your name. Those are two different jobs." Nicky picked up the empty case, stepped back into the hallway, and the second the door shut behind him, the clock started loud enough to hear in his teeth. 2:41 a.m. Nicky sat in his black '66 Cadillac Fleetwood on 135th and 5th, engine off, hands on the steering wheel like he was pretending calm. Harlem was framed by sodium light and sleepless windows, and across the street a cream-colored Oldsmobile idled too long. 3 silhouettes inside, patient as a tax bill. Frank's men didn't idle. They acted. This felt like watching, like pressure, like a reminder that somebody could afford to wait while Nicky couldn't. He opened a small notebook, wrote the time, then wrote package, then who benefits, because paying Frank fast would solve the short problem and create the permanent one. Nicky becoming the man who could be bent by ultimatums. He used payphones and coins, short calls with no softness. He woke Leon in Queens. "I need you awake," Nicky said. "I need money moved in eyes." Leon didn't ask how Nicky felt. How much? 180 cash, Nicky said. Leon exhaled. That ain't a debt. That's a statement. It's bait, Nicky replied. Meet me 4 a.m. Lennox Grill. Back booth. No crew. He hung up and called Maribel on Amsterdam, who could turn jewelry into cash without asking where the tears went. Then two debtors who'd been dodging him for weeks. At 3:23, a kid named Reggie drifted behind him in the shadows, too eager to look casual. Nicky spun into the streetlight and caught him there. Word is Frank ain't taking payment, Reggie said, voice trembling. Word is he's taking principal. Nicky stepped close enough for Reggie to taste the warning. Words get heavy, Nicky murmured. They break your back. Who you hear that from? Reggie hesitated the way a man hesitates when either answer can kill him, and that hesitation told Nicky the rumor was in the air, not delivered by a boss. Somebody was broadcasting the story. Nicky didn't hit him. He didn't need blood to make a point. If you hear a name tied to this, you bring it to me, Nicky said. Not Frank. Not cops. Me. Reggie nodded too fast and fled. And Nicky watched him go, knowing the real danger wasn't Frank's anger. It was the narrative forming around Nicky minute by minute, shrinking him in other people's mouths until someone decided he was safe to crush. 4:06 a.m. The Lennox Grill smelled like burnt coffee and last night's onions, jazz playing low like it didn't want trouble. Leon slid into the booth across from Nicky with his eyes already scanning for mirrors and ears. You look like you've been praying, Leon said. I don't pray, Nicky replied. I plan. Nicky laid it out clean. The missing shipment, Frank's heat, the Oldsmobile that didn't feel like Frank, and Bumpy's clock ticking behind everything. Leon's face tightened at Bumpy's name. Money first, Leon said, but you can't walk in like tribute. Nicky nodded. I'm emptying everything, he said, and the day turned into a grim harvest. A basement locker under a beauty salon on 7th Avenue, key taped beneath a rail behind a dumpster, a suitcase wrapped in plastic, bills smelling like dust and sweat. Mrs. Carter's apartment on 146th, cash inside a hollow dictionary. Nicky leaving her extra rent because curses were expensive. Maribel's narrow shop on Amsterdam, her robe tied tight, her eyes sharper than her scissors, her fingers turning diamonds into numbers. Cash today, she said. Now, Nicky answered, and she handed him a brown paper bag with money like she was passing bread. She didn't ask why, and that was the first daylight twist. She already knew the rumor, which meant it was moving faster than Nicky's car. Behind a church on 132nd, Debtor Curtis arrived in a green Buick, trying to laugh his way out of a 12,000 hole. Nicky didn't raise his voice. He raised the stakes. You give me what you got, Nicky said, and you give me a name. Curtis's face twitched when the truth hit. Bishop, he whispered. He said you'd be gone by the weekend. That name tasted wrong. Too clean, too official, like a man who didn't threaten, he predicted. At Sal's bar on 118th, stools still upside down, Sal talked tough until Nicky slid a grainy photo of Sal's son walking into school. Sal's hand shook as he opened the safe. Cash in a small ledger with neat handwriting, accounting handwriting. Bishop came in, Sal said, sweating. He said the next king wouldn't need to shoot. He'd need signatures. Nicky drove back through Harlem with cash bags in the trunk and paper in his pocket, and the clock got louder because now he understood the enemy might not want blood at all. The enemy might want receipts. 10:12 a.m. Small's Paradise was closed, Lemon Cleaner fighting a losing war against stale smoke. Eddie Shorty Price sat across from Nicky with a face carved by stress. Shorty worked docks when he was honest and information when he wasn't, and today he looked like he wanted neither. It was a pickup, Shorty said. Pier 40. Night before last. Nicky kept it simple. Same until it wasn't. Shorty nodded. A slip showed up, he said. Stamped. Looked official. Nicky felt a bruise form in his mind. Who brought it? A kid, Shorty said. Clean kid. Brown shoes. Briefcase. Briefcase meant office. Office meant Bishop. Where'd it go? Nicky asked. Storage, Shorty said. 125th, Unit 3C. Same place you use sometimes. The intimacy of it made Nicky's skin tighten. Who had keys? Nicky asked, already hating the answer. Shorty's eyes watered. Your guy, he whispered. The one with the limp. Ricky, Nicky said, and the name tasted like family. Ricky had driven Nicky's mother to church when Nicky couldn't. Ricky limped because once he'd taken a beating meant for Nicky. Betrayal from that direction didn't feel like a knife. It felt like the floor giving way. Nicky didn't explode. He stored the feeling like ammunition. At the storage facility, chain link fence, board clerk, Unit 3C opening too easily, the crate inside empty except for a typed note. Nothing is ever lost. Only moved. Beneath it, an embossed seal mimicking a city office. Not Frank. Not Street. Nicky scanned the concrete and caught a smear of red paint. Like something heavy had been dragged out, and his mind flashed to a red-painted truck behind a cleaning company on 124th that never cleaned anything. In St. Nicholas Park, Ricky's old Ford sat crooked, door cracked open like a mistake. On the seat, Ricky's hat and a ring of keys tagged 3C, placed neatly like a calling card. A message. We can touch your family, and we want you to know it. 2:05 p.m. The funeral for Harold Sugar Green filled a red brick church on 138th with lilies, damp wool, and whispers that crawled from pew to pew. Sugar wasn't a king, but funerals weren't about the dead. They were about the living watching each other. Nicky arrived in a dark suit that fit like armor and walked in alone because too many men looked scared and too few looked suicidal, and he needed to look unbothered. Frank was already near the front, hands folded like prayer, face calm in a way that meant violence was simply scheduled for later. During a hymn break, Bishop slid into the pew beside Nicky like he belonged there. Clean suit, tie clip, soft hands, soft smile. Nicholas, Bishop whispered, using the full name like a sentence. I'm sorry to see you in pain. Nicky kept his eyes forward. You got the wrong pew. Bishop's smile held. Harlem is a small sanctuary, he murmured. We all sit together eventually. Nicky's fingers crumpled the program. Where's Ricky? Nicky whispered. Bishop's smile flickered. Just a crack, then repaired itself. I don't know a Ricky. He lied too cleanly. Nicky stood and walked down the aisle toward Frank, letting heads turn and whispers rise because sometimes the room needed to witness your spine. He stopped at Frank's row and spoke low. Sunset, Nicky said. Frank leaned in. You got my package? Tonight, Nicky said. And you've been listening to the wrong ones. Frank's voice dropped like ice. Careful. You don't get to tell me who's wrong. You get to tell me where my package is. Tonight, Nicky repeated, then walked away before Frank could trap the moment. Outside after the service, the sidewalk became a marketplace of rumor, and Nicky saw the cream Oldsmobile again, and men in plain coats who looked downtown, and then he saw Ricky across the street, alive, bruised, hat gone, standing beside Bishop like a sinner beside a pastor. Ricky met Nicky's eyes for 1 second and didn't ask for help. He apologized, then turned and vanished with Bishop into the crowd. Leon leaned in, ready to chase. Nicky stayed still. If we chase, Nicky said, we play their game. Leon's jaw flexed. Then what? Nicky stared at the spot Ricky disappeared. We changed the rules tonight, he said, and the clock in his chest got louder. 6:44 p.m. The Blue Marlin on Edgecombe smelled like butter, garlic, and secrets. The back room lit by a single hanging lamp, curtains thick enough to swallow sound. Nicky arrived 3 minutes early, exactly the line between weakness and anxiety, carrying one briefcase while 2 more sat in his trunk stuffed with every dollar he owned. He left Leon in the car with one instruction. If I'm not out by 7:30, you call Bumpy. Not cops. Bumpy. Frank was already seated when Nicky entered, 2 men behind him, a manila folder on the table that made Nicky's skin tighten because paperwork in a gangster room meant someone wanted to win without dirty hands. Open it, Frank said, eyes on the briefcase. Nicky didn't. He sat down instead, slow, controlled. The air sharpened. "You playing games," Frank said, calm enough to be lethal. "I'm changing the order," Nicky replied. "You got my package?" "No," Nicky said, and silence hit like a punch. Frank's face stayed smooth, but the room got colder. Nicky slid a key ring onto the table. Brass tag scratched 3C. Then a plastic sleeve copy of the pickup slip, stamped with a fake city seal. Frank studied it, and Nicky watched recognition replace assumption. "This stamp ain't official," Frank murmured. "Exactly," Nicky said. "It's made by someone who knows what official looks like." Frank's jaw tightened. "Name?" Nicky let the hourglass build. "Before the name," he said, "understand this. I have your money. Every dollar. I can make it quiet." Frank's mouth curled. Finally, Nicky didn't flinch. "But I'm not buying a label," he said. "I'm not buying the story that I fold when threatened." Frank's eyes hardened. "So what you buying?" "Rules," Nicky said. He placed Sal's ledger on the table and tapped the page where Bishop's name sat like a clean stain. "Bishop," Nicky said. "He's got stamps, watchers, and my man." Frank opened his manila folder and slid out a grainy surveillance photo of Nicky's mother outside her Bronx building. Groceries in hand. Nicky felt something tear inside him and kept his face still. Frank watched him. "This ain't about money," Frank said softly. "This is about principle." Nicky's voice stayed low. "You took that." Frank shook his head. "No, that looks like police work. Or a man who pays for it." The board changed. Frank leaned forward. "We move tonight," he said. "You bring the cash in the open to Bumpy's people, so nobody calls it tribute. And Bishop, we pull his mask off." Nicky's throat tightened. "Ricky." Frank's eyes went dark. "We get your man back," he said, "because I don't like anybody thinking they can play me." 8:03 p.m. Bishop's office sat above a storefront on 117th under a sign that read Community Development Association like a joke told by a man who never laughed. Frank brought 4 men. Nicky brought Leon and 2. Across the street, the cream Oldsmobile waited again, and Leon melted into shadow to watch it. Nicky and Frank climbed the stairs past the smell of ink and cheap coffee and the clack of a typewriter like a machine making tombstones. Frank kicked the door in. Bishop froze behind his desk mid-phone call, and on the couch behind him sat Ricky with his hands free. No rope, no gag, just shame. That twist hit hardest because it meant Ricky wasn't held by force. He was held by agreement. "I'm sorry," Ricky whispered when Nicky said his name. "Why?" Nicky asked, voice quiet. Ricky swallowed hard. "Because you were going to die anyway," he said, "and Bishop promised my mother would be taken care of." Bishop leaned back, recovering. "It's not personal," he said. "It's arithmetic." Then he dropped the rule change like a bomb wrapped in velvet. "There are detectives downstairs." The air turned to ice. This wasn't street pressure anymore. This was system pressure, the kind that seized assets and rewrote neighborhoods. Bishop smiled, thinking he'd already won. Footsteps filled the hallway, heavy, multiple, and Bishop's smile widened, expecting law. The door burst open, and it wasn't detectives. It was Bumpy's men in suits, calm faces, and behind them Bumpy himself, cardigan on, eyes dead, voice steady. "Everybody breathe," Bumpy said. "Nobody's dying in an office with a charity sign." Bishop's smile collapsed. Bumpy placed an envelope on the desk like a judge laying out evidence. Inside were photographs of Bishop handing a folder to a detective, smiling like betrayal was professionalism. Frank stared at the photos with disgust. "You a snitch," he said softly. Bishop tried to speak and couldn't. Bumpy looked at Nicky. "You had 24 hours," he said. "Close the problem." Nicky looked at Ricky, betrayal still hot, and made the choice that saved his name without drowning him in vengeance. "You're alive," Nicky told Ricky. "That's your mercy. But you're not mine anymore." Then Nicky tapped the ledger's routing number like it was Bishop's throat. "You wanted to count other men's hours," Nicky said. "Now yours are counted." The cash stayed in Nicky's trunk until Bumpy ordered it moved in daylight, publicly witnessed settlement, not tribute. Bishop didn't get a dramatic end. He got the one he feared, being erased. His sign came down. His calls stopped getting returned. Auditors arrived like ghosts. And Harlem learned the lesson the hard way. The sharpest blade wasn't always metal. Sometimes it was paper with a seal, filed away until the perfect moment. Nicky's rise after that came fast, but quiet, because he learned attention wasn't power, it was a spotlight that cooked you alive. And when vanity tempted him months later, fur coat, bright streetlight, eyes counting, he remembered Bumpy's clock and chose the only survival that kept his mother safe. Not to fight louder, but to disappear smart, so his name could stay standing even when his body wasn't in Harlem to prove it.